Greetings dear children. In this video, we will be learning Robert Browning's The Patriot. About Robert Browning, a famous poet of the Victorian age, his poems ranged from intellectual to artistic element. Best known for his poem The Pied Piper of Hamelin, the poem The Patriot is written in the form of dramatic monologue. Browning's own philosophy that God's in his heaven and all's right with the world is the note on which the poem The Patriot ends. Let's look at the poem in brief. The speaker, the patriot, is clearly separate from the poet. There is an implied audience which makes the dramatic monologue different from a soliloquy. The poem describes the different treatments the same man receives from the same people within the course of 1 year. First, he was received by the people royally, like a patriot. After 1 year, he was dragged through the streets by the same people and given a scornful send-off to his death as a condemned man. A year ago, roses and fame, and today he is left with nothing but shame and death. A grim reminder that life is uncertain. He has not been rewarded in his lifetime. So the patriot hopes he would be rewarded by God in heaven. It was roses, roses all the way, with myrtle mixed in my path like mad. The house rose seemed to heave and sway. The church spire flamed, such flags they had a year ago on this very day. The poem starts with the patriot describing an occasion, a grand public welcome that happened a year ago there on exact the same day. He is reminiscing the past and he builds an image for us as he remembers that day. What about his path? His walking path was covered with lords and much of rose petals with myrtle mixed in them. The trail was festooned with these flowers for him. Then we see that the house roofs seemed to heave and sway. The church spires flamed, such flags they had. People standing on the roofs of their houses cheered for him as he went by. They were overjoyed to ascertain him. The spires of the church means the pointed tapering roofs which we generally see on old cathedrals and similar buildings were covered with flaming flags that the people had put up for a celebration. People were overwhelmingly delighted to greet the hero, the patriot, and they were enthusiastic to ascertain him as he has gone by. Here it is only logical to assume that this grand celebration must be as a result of some achievement on the speaker's part. It's not mentioned what it is, an achievement. And the patriot is seen as a public hero in this stanza who is greeted with much love and affection by the commoners. The first line, let's see, the poetic device used is metaphor. We can see that the poet uses a metaphor saying it was roses, roses all the way, in which he is describing the elated feelings of love, dedication, and happiness through the word roses. The second line, we see three poetic devices are there. The first one is alliteration. M sound is repeated. Myrtle mixed my path like mad. M sound is repeated in 4 places. And the next one is simile. The word mad refers to the state of extreme or intense feelings or acts. Here in this poem, this simile is used to describe the passionate and welcoming feelings of public for their leader. That's why simile. So alliteration, simile, then hyperbole. There is an exaggeration. Mixed, myrtle mixed in my path like mad. So exaggerated, that's the reason the literary term hyperbole is used there. Then the third line, again, we see one more poetic device. The house roofs seem to heave and sway. That is personification. Explanation is given there. Refer to the crowd on the roofs and their frenzy. Their frenziness, that means overexcited they are on seeing the patriot, which is causing them to clamber each other and give the impression of sway as the houses were moving. Heave and sway, personification, and alliteration is also used there. Seemed and sway, sound is repeated. Then the fourth line, the poetic device used is metaphor. The church spires are flaming with the flags. That line, metaphor. One more poetic device, as we know that repetition of consonant sounds, it is metaphor. First sound is repeated. And all this happened a year ago on this very day. So we get to know in this stanza what kind of welcome had the speaker received. So an allusion is also there. It is given at the end. The patriot's arrival in the town was welcomed by the people with roses. This entry of the patriot echoes that of Christ in Jerusalem and is followed by a similar reversal of public acclaim into disgrace and death. So in this stanza we should know that what was the occasion, that people they had gathered to welcome the patriot who is returning to the city, as I told that after some great achievement. It's not mentioned what it is. It's some great achievement. So where does the scene take place? It takes place in the street. And the preparation that people had made here, that is people scattered roses and myrtle on the street. The church spires were lighted up and the flags were fluttering all around. So the literary device, we know that the first line metaphor, second line alliteration, hyperbole, simile, third line personification, fourth line metaphor and alliteration. The air broke into a mist with bells. The old walls rocked with the crowd and cries. Had I said, good folk, mere noise ripples, but give me your son from yonder skies, they had answered, and afterward what else? So this stanza, it's an extension of the first stanza, which tells us the frenzy attitude of the people on the patriot's arrival. So here the speaker continues narrating the story from an equivalent day a year ago. He describes the event to the readers. So what people were doing, they were rejoicing by ringing bells, and therefore the entire atmosphere was thick with its noise. People were standing, the old walls rocked, were standing on some quiet old structure and cheering for the patriot with their cries rocking the walls. The ringing of the church bells filled the air. The air broke into a mist with bells, and it seemed to be echoing the celebration and welcome. The old walls of the city echoed the impact of the din, means the noise created by the crowd. Had the patriot told the people, good folk, mere noise ripples, give me your son from yonder skies. If he had told the people he did not want all this cheer and applause, but wanted the people to fetch the sun. Give me your son from yonder skies. To fetch the sun from the skies for him. They would have done it for him. Soon after, they would have again asked him, what else you want? What more he wanted? So this stanza, it is clearly shown that the patriot is given power, glory, admiration, and honor. He wants to live in the people's memory as an immortal hero. He imagines the situation that if he had demanded from the people something impossible like the sun from the yonder skies, they would have granted him. This shows that he does not seek momentary praise but everlasting recognition and glory. Let's look at the poetic devices. Second line, alliteration, repetition of consonant sounds. And give me your sun from yonder skies. It is hyperbole. Exaggeration it is. So there is an allusion in that. There is an allusion to a Greek myth of Icarus, whose father gave him a pair of wings fixed on a wooden frame with wax to escape from Crete. He warned him not to go too near the sun, otherwise the wax would melt. Icarus became too excited with the ability to fly that he forgot his father's warning. He flew so near the sun that the wax attaching his wings was melted and he fell into the Aegean Sea and died. This is the allusion. It is mentioned at the end of the poem. In the PPT it is mentioned there. And what does the sun symbolize here? Ultimate power, symbol of power, glory, immortality. So the first two stanza describes the past events, whereas the third stanza is a revelation of the present condition of the patriot. So the third stanza of the poem is that the speaker's discourse on what all he did for his country. It begins with, the third stanza begins with the poet giving subtle regard to the old Greek mythological tale of Icarus and Daedalus. Just like, as I have mentioned in the previous stanza, just like Icarus, the speaker admits that he too was overly ambitious and he leaped at the sun, giving the sun to his loving friends to keep. It may suggest that his actions somehow caused the death of his close friends. Here again, we will hypothesize that the patriot is talking about some battle that claimed the lives of his dear ones. And he did everything a person could have done to form things right, set things right. Despite this, he is facing his undeserved end. He calls to attention the miserable state he is in. The terms harvest and reap are closely seen as the metaphors for karma. And therefore, the poet uses this to convey that what he is facing isn't what he truly deserves. He says that it has been a year since that day, and here the poet ends the speaker's flashback. Alack, it was I who leaped at the sun. It was he himself who tried to do something impossible for his people. And see, how does he refer the people? My loving friend, his beloved friends. Done something impossible for his beloved friends. This act he had performed was such in nature, he had left it undone. No other man could have accomplished it. Now he mourns, he worries how his noble deed, see my harvest, what I reap. His noble deed had been repaid by people. And he takes the reader's attention that see my harvest, what I reap. This third stanza acts as a point of transition from past to present. And the poetic devices are there. The first one, leap at the sun, hyperbole. See my harvest, what I reap, metaphor. There is nobody on the housetops now, just a palsied view at the windowsill. For the best of the sight is all alow at the shambles gate, or better yet, by the very scaffold's foot I trove. So there are no more people on the housetops now trying to catch a glimpse of the Patriot. Only just a palsied few at the window set. Only the ones who cannot travel to the spot of execution, the ones who are crippled, are staring outside their windows to get a look at the Patriot. The others, where are the others and why nobody's on the housetops now? I think, the Patriot thinks, I trow, means he thinks the others have reached the gate of the gallows for what? To get a better view of his execution. The scene shifts from the happy one of the first stanza to the march to the gallows where the Patriot will be put to death. In this stanza, the Patriot takes up a sarcastic tone of this stanza. The previous stanza, what was the tone? Regret. That's why the word alak is used. This stanza, in a sarcastic tone, the Patriot takes up a sarcastic tone at this point and says that this is because why there is nobody on the housetops now. This is because the best sight is at the gate of the gallows. Shambles gate means the gate leading to the place of execution. They'll be there. In this stanza, a contrast is drawn between the time when the rooftops were heaving with the people celebrating the Patriots' deeds and the current scene where the people are assembled. But the difference is now they are near the gallows to see his death. And better, I think, scaffold's foot. Scaffold's foot means what? Bottom of raised wooden platform used for execution. Very close view. The Patriot's anguish is seen when he taunts the people, saying that these people will be found not on the roofs but on the site of the execution. Thus, this stanza is suggestive of Patriot's fate, that he is being taken to be executed. I go in the rain and more than needs a rope cut both my wrists behind. And I think by the feel my forehead bleeds, for they fling, whoever has a mind, stones at me for my year's misdeed. So this stanza is the continuation of the fourth stanza and it further describes the speaker's humiliation at the hands of the people. So how he has been led to the gallows? The Patriot is being led to the gallows in the rain. In which what condition it is? More than needs a rope cut both my wrist behind. His wrists are tied tightly behind his back with a rope that cuts through his skin. And I think by the feel, he feels it. He thinks, he's not sure or certain. He feels my forehead bleeds. His forehead is bleeding. That means he can feel blood trickling down his forehead. The reason is he cannot touch and see because his wrists are bound. But he is unable to know for sure as his hands are bound. His wounds are the result of the stones being thrown at him by the people standing along his path. For they fling, how his forehead is cut and it is bleeding. People, whoever has a mind to throw stones at the Patriot, they fling, they have thrown stones at him. For what reason? Those who are sure about, those who feels that he has done, Patriot has done something wrong. So those who felt that he has done something wrong for the countrymen, for his countrymen, they punish him for the so-called misdeeds of the past year. It is ironic that people have completely forgotten his good deeds. And here we see that people throwing stones at him causing injuries. So the stones have replaced the petals of the roses which we have seen in first stanza. The literary term used here is a pathetic fallacy. The rain here is symbolic of a number of things. The Patriot gets wet by the rain, losing dignity, then representing his innocence. The rain washes him clean And the rain also works to create a tense atmosphere. The general atmosphere in the stanza which is provided is dark, gloomy, and tense. Thus I entered and thus I go. In triumphs people have dropped down dead. Paid by the world, what dost thou owe? Me, God might question. Now instead, its God shall repay, I am safer so. The Patriot is the first line reminds us of how he was welcomed and now how he has been taken to the gallows. Thus I entered and thus I go. The Patriot is heading towards the gallows in the rain with his hands tied behind his back. He had entered the city like a celebrity. He was hero worshipped and they had accorded him a warm welcome. Now, thus I go. He is walking through the same streets but in humiliation as a convict. The triumphant hero has fallen. He feels that if he had died a year ago, the reason is one may also collapse in excess of joy. He would not have anything owed to God because people had rewarded him. But now people did not give him the correct or the right reward. Now he has not got any reward from his countrymen paid by the world. What dost thou owe me? God might question. Now it's me. I have to reward you. The patriot feels optimistic now. He will be rewarded by God in heaven because people did not pay or reward him which he really deserved. So he feels safe. Instead, it's God shall repay. He feels safe when he will be in the lap of God. His real payment will be done by him, God. He places his trust in God as he knows that he is very sure that he has not committed any moral wrongs. The Almighty is just and fair. Therefore, he is safe with him, God, as he will not have to face any more undeserving punishment which he has received from the same countrymen. So he is very sure and optimistic that he will be justly rewarded for his deeds. Thus, this concluding stanza of the poem begins with the patriot declaring that last year, when he had entered the city, he was welcomed as a celebrity or hero. Now he is leaving the city in great humiliation and insult. Thus I go. Like a hero, he entered, and how he goes with humiliation and insult, he leaves the world. The patriot's religious belief have been reflected because he places his trust in God. So his religious beliefs have been reflected and his belief in afterlife is also revealed. Even in the midst of the tragedy, the poem ends quite optimistically. The reason is, he tells here, if he had not received rewards in this world, he will be rewarded in the other world. Thus, this poem expresses Robert Browning's optimistic philosophy of life. Here we see that the poem ends quite optimistically. He has entered the gates of death and now he is ready to go to his life after death. The speaker has resigned himself to his fate. So here the poem speaks about a two system of justice. One is given by the world people, the other justice of God which he gets after death. And in which one he places his trust is God's justice because he firmly believes that he has committed no moral wrongs, hence he will not have to face any more undeserving punishment and he is very sure that he will be truly and justly rewarded for his acts as well as deeds. Let's look at some other poetic devices. The poem followed the rhyme scheme A B A B A, and the symbols. Roses symbolize respect, honor, and passion. Myrtle symbolizes purity, love, innocence, and generosity. The church spire hopeful gestures and strength, sun, unreachable or beyond access. Juxtaposition. The image projected in the beginning of the poem is juxtaposed, means contrasted with the current scenario, that is the last two stanzas, fourth and fifth stanza. This effect works in creating a contrast, which is actually the central idea of the poem. Allusion to a Greek myth of Icarus, son of Daedalus, whose father gave him pair of wings. This I have already detailed while taking the stanza. The pair of wings fixed on wooden frame with wax to escape from Crete. He warned him not to go too near the sun, otherwise the wax would melt. Icarus became so excited with the ability to fly and he has forgotten his father's warning. He flew so near the sun that the wax attaching his wings was melted and he fell into the Aegean Sea and died. The next one is irony. Contrast between the past and present is the best example of irony. The first two stanza past and the third stanza reveals his condition, and the next two stanzas, fifth and sixth stanza, is in present tense. The theme of the poem is public fickleness, rise and fall of glory, and faith in God. Thank you, children.